Jeanne McHale, welcome to KRFP. So glad you could join me today.
Thank you, Maree. I'm glad to be here.
So this is the 7th year for the annual Intolerista Wingding. Tell us about how this event got started.
Well, it was the idea of Tom Hansen and other people that he works with that call themselves Intoloristas, and I wasn't really too aware of what the group was working on until 2008 when they decided to hold this wingding, and they invited Roy Zimmerman to come play. And they contacted my husband, Fritz Knorr, who, as you know, is the sort of a leader, to the extent that there is a leader of the Moscow Volunteer Peace Band. And Tom wanted to know if Fritz would have the peace band play at the wingding. And Fritz said, no, we're sort of an outdoor marching band, and maybe you want to look at my wife's music videos. And he sent Roy Zimmerman the link to the Sarah Palin song that I recorded in 2008. Roy Zimmerman and his wife and co-conspirator Melanie Harvey were, I guess they liked the Sarah Palin song and they approved of having me open, and I had never heard of Roy before that, and I didn't really know much about the Intoloristas, but a gig is a gig. And so after I found out what they were working on and what they stood for, I was totally on board. And then after I looked at some of Roy's videos online, I was totally enamored of what he's doing with music and musical activism, and I wanted to be a part of it, even though it was kind of scary because I thought, wow, am I, on the level, am I at that level where I could contribute to a gig of this nature? I'm so glad that I did, because I've been having fun with it now. This will be the 7th year in a row.
What are the Intoloristas celebrating at the wingding?
In general, progressive values and having a good time with music. And as you have seen from the list of what the Intoloristas stand for, they stand for values like feminism and diversity, anti-slavery sentiments, and so forth. So these are people who all look at the world the same way and want to express that through music and just get together and have a good time. Well, the Intolorista Wingding is about celebrating progressive values, and we could be accused in our songs, both Roy and I could be accused of preaching to the choir, and Roy's response to that is that it's not preaching to the choir, it's entertaining the troops. And it is a difficult struggle, trying to save the planet, trying to fight for human rights for everybody, and just the struggles that go with wanting peace in the world and peace in our own town. Those are tough issues, and they're not really funny. But if we don't have humor and we don't have music, we're not going to have the will to fight for social justice or to fight for environmental activism. And so for me, the goal is to have a good time while you're working on those good causes.
That name, Intolorista, I'm wondering about that name. How did you get to be called the Intoloristas?
What I've learned from Tom Hansen is that in around 2003, there were a group of people that were challenging the local pastor, Doug Wilson, and his pro-slavery views, and he referred to them as moles, Moscow Organization of Liberal Elitists, I think it was. And then later he dubbed these people with the name Intoloristas because he was alleging that by being anti-slavery, they were intolerant of these religious viewpoints being expressed by the pastor, Doug Wilson. And so the people who felt this way kept the name Intoloristas. They just adopted it. And so my joke is that the Intoloristas are people who are intolerant of intolerant. So we don't think that religion can be used as a guise for hatred or discrimination. And you can't justify slavery or hatred or lack of inclusiveness by any religious principle. And so I think that's what the people who adopt this name believe in. There's no organization. It's not like anybody pays dues or belongs to a club to be called an Intolorista. It's like the Moscow Volunteer Peace Band. You just show up and you have this sentiment. And so if you come to the wingding on Saturday, June 13th at 6 p.m., which is free, and join us in our musical mayhem, then you are an intolerista as well.
Jeanne, so much of your music that we hear in the community is about social activism. Has your music always been about social activism?
Pretty much. I guess the first song that I wrote as an adult was about 35 years ago when my husband and I first moved to Moscow, and in the 1980s there was a big push to widen A Street, West A Street, and we had a home there at that time, and there were a lot of people attending hearings and going to city council to protest their plans to destroy our neighborhood, and so I wrote a song at that time called A Street Sleazy. And the next song that I remember writing was about the Iran-Contra arms scandal, and that was called Geezergate Bash-a-Muck Scam. And so I've had this tendency to write songs with really short shelf lives, and sometimes the songs kind of write themselves because they take topics from the news that just, I guess for me it's a way to process things that I want to react to, and you know how it is when you're listening to the news. It can be very frustrating sometimes and you feel powerless. And so music is a way to sort of rally people around the cause, or at least entertain them or look on the bright side of things in the face of some really pressing and depressing political situations. Is
there any particular theme for this year's Wingding?
Well, there's no one particular theme. And I don't know what treats Roy Zimmerman has in store for us, but I'm sure they're going to be fabulous. My own songs are going to cover a range of topics, from environmental issues related to our over-reliance on oil. That's one of my favorite topics. And also human rights. 9 years. We're still trying to get human rights for gender identity and sexual orientation in the state of Idaho. So we have to keep pushing for that, and music is just one tool that we have in our efforts to get social justice for everybody.
Well, this sounds like it's going to be a wonderful, very entertaining event with some really great people. The event will be June 13th at the 1912 Center in Moscow on 3rd Street, and it's open to the public. The event is free and goes from 6 to 10 p.m. Local musician Jeanne McHale and Roy Zimmerman.